Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the Female Solution.
The earth is in the process of transformation. A separation, such as when a cell divides. Half will remain in the third dimension, the old earth, where there is conflict and violence. The other half will ascend to the fifth dimension, the new earth, where no negativity can exist. All across the world, there are internet content creators that are sharing new information to raise your consciousness and prepare you to ascend to the new earth. Join me, Naimah Latif, every Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. Central Time, and we will introduce to you these Voices of Enlightenment. Grand Rising, and thank you for joining us on this Wednesday edition of Voices of Enlightenment. I'm Naimah Latif. All across the world, everybody is experiencing something. But only some people know why. There are literally two kinds of people in this world: the aware and the unaware. The aware realize that we are going through a spiritual transformation because the earth is ascending to a new vibration in which no negativity can exist. The people who are aware are the people who have evolved spiritually over lifetimes of experiences that gave them insight and understanding and awareness, so that they learned what the real purpose of life on earth is all about. We are here for one purpose. We who are merely projectiles of the one energy of creation we call God are here on this earth for a unique experience. We who have chosen this very intense experience of separation from the collective, separation of us as individual sparks of light from the one. We have chosen this experience to see if we could learn and we could find our way back to the one energy of creation, which is love. That's our mission. So at this time, as the earth prepares to transcend to a new vibration in which only love can exist, there are those who are aware of this, and they are using their internet platforms to share what they know through topics of discussion, through guests, through their own personal testimonies. They're making this choice. And because they're making this choice, they're raising the awareness of the planet. They are raising the awareness of those who don't understand why this is such an intense time of conflict both in personal lives as well as the collective life in countries and between countries and among individuals. Why are we going through this? There is a very important reason. Because we are transforming. We are in that stage of childbirth that was talked about in the book of Revelations, and many other spiritual teachings are telling us about these very times where we are transforming. Well, there are those who are aware, and there are those who are unaware. And as I look around and see the impact of the unaware and how much they contribute to the negativity because of their lack of understanding, well, we chose to create a show that heightens the awareness. So I'm going to be having some guests on that express ideas that may rattle a few people who have held on to a belief system based in fear and punishment and judgment, hellfire and condemnation, because that's what they understand. That's what they've been taught. That's what they know. But there are those of us who've had experiences beyond our realm. And because they often contradict popular religious thought, we stay silent out of perhaps fear of being ridiculed or being even called demonic. But it's important in these times that people who have evolved to a point where they are receiving information share what they know to remove the fear and increase the awareness. So today I've made a decision. I've decided to come out of the closet. No, not that closet. No, I'm still very much heterosexual. I'm coming out of the spiritual closet. The closet that those remain in who perhaps have had near-death experiences in which they have traveled to heaven after a clinical death, met loved ones, maybe even met Jesus or other spiritual guides, and have been told the purpose of their lives, have received life reviews, have understood why they're here. But when they come back and try to share it, they get shut down or ridiculed or mocked or told that they just had a brain malfunction, and so they stop talking. Those who have experienced astral projection, the leaving of your physical body and entering another dimension, and perhaps conversed with spirit beings who are unseen in the physical realm. There are those who have had contact with extraterrestrials, beings outside of our world who travel here. But because they exist in a different dimension, on a different frequency, different vibration, we cannot see them with our physical eyes. The majority of the world is unaware of their presence But there are those who have encountered them. And when topics come up of UFOs and is there really life on other planets, they know for sure, yes, there is. I've met them. But they don't talk about these things out of fear. Fear that they will be ridiculed. Fear that they will be accused of being evil or conversing with evil spirits. They fear they'll be rejected by their religious organizations. And so they don't share what they know. But these are the times we need to share. Because things have happened. And those who are living in fear don't understand why. But we who have had these experiences, we must share what we know and not worry about those who don't understand, because it's time for us to evolve. And so I'm coming out of the closet today, coming out of the spiritual closet to share my story. I've talked about it on a couple of other shows, a couple other people's shows. Some of the programs in which these things are openly discussed by hosts that are willing to explore the unknown. But I want to give you my story so that the way is cleared for those who are willing to tell their stories and need to address an audience that is open-minded and not fear-based. This story is available on my website, connected to an experience that I had after the transition of my husband of nearly 20 years, Sultan Abdul Latif, my partner in writing books and lecturing and sharing information. And so I'm going to share a bit of that story with you. And then I'll talk about my experiences with extraterrestrials, with leaving my body and traveling to the other dimension, with past life memories of when I was a different species, even a different gender. Because all of us have lived many times and we don't remember. But if we knew this, our perspective on our current lives would be so much different. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll tell you the story of why my path has changed so that I may also be a voice of enlightenment. We'll be right back. After this quick break, we want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. We'll be back in just one moment. So stay with us.
Welcome to Master Force with Mushim Suit. Join us each week on Thursdays at 7 a.m. Central, live on Facebook and YouTube on the Female Solution page, as we dive into powerful topics designed to assist you in mastering your life force. Our conversations feature a diverse lineup of experts, all dedicated to your growth. Tune in weekly to discover new ways to elevate your spirit and raise your vibration. And remember, we are ascending.
When you see Black children misbehaving in public, being loud, disrespectful, and destructive, do you think to yourself, what they need is a good beating? That's what's wrong with these parents. They don't know how to discipline their children. Were you disciplined in that way? And did your parents also call you stupid, ignorant, and lazy? That's the way you break a slave. You terrorize them with constant fear of painful punishment. You teach them they're powerless to speak up, and you insult them so they feel like nothing. We were broken by parents who were broken, by parents who were broken. It's time to end the cycle of brokenness and bring healing to ourselves and our communities by using knowledge, respect, and love. We'll show you how. I'm Naimah Latif. Get the book Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma. On sale now. Go to www.naimalatif.com. Yes. This is a revealing of an understanding. That book, Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma. And if you watched our show yesterday with Assata says she has been highlighting a series called Love Don't Hurt. And we had an opportunity to be a guest on her show to talk about that and this book. Well, this book definitely launched my career into the world of speaking and education. Evolved out of a newspaper project with my longtime husband, Sultan Abdul Latif. And our coming together as husband and wife was, of course, by design, pre-design by the divine, for the purpose of creating that book. Ours was a deeply spiritual partnership, and that partnership produced several works. The first book we co-wrote, Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma, was to help African Americans emotionally devastated by the slave experience to reclaim their humanity, because such a trauma continues to reproduce itself over generations, and it's time for us as a people to heal. There's so many human dramas on planet Earth, and every continent has them. People who've hurt each other, they've done cruel things to each other, committed crimes against each other, there've been wars, there've been violence. And so the story of Earth is a human drama. But Earth is not the only place to live. It's not the only reality. And yet it's a very unique experience, because coming to Earth, the first thing is that you agree to have your memory of who you are as an eternal being totally wiped clean. You come here remembering nothing. And even though many of us get glimpses of the previous reality when we were in spirit, most of us go through a lifetime remembering nothing. And so we only understand and believe what we're told. And we're deeply programmed by religious institutions to fear that we're going to be punished with hell and burning fire forever and ever if we don't obey religious rules. We're programmed and we're believing that. And because we're believing that, we often create more harmful things. And we often do more hurtful things to each other because we believe that the creator of the universe is a punishing entity that causes pain. This belief is at the root of much of our beating children. So it's important for us, if we're going to stop the cruelty with which we raise our children, to be made aware of the reality of existence and the fact that the creator of the universe is only love. That is the energy of creation. It's only love, not fear, not pain, not punishment. And we're here to return to that energy of love. That's what this experience is. Well, I grew up in the Christian church. And then there was a point where my soul was seeking something different. I didn't feel right about that idea of God being mad at us and we're born bad and someone had to come to take our punishment so that we could be forgiven. And I'm not, no shade or disrespect to any Christian person. I'm just sharing my journey. I knew that something in that didn't feel right to me. So I became acquainted through an associate that I met of a spiritual community. And of course, I'd heard about Islam and so forth, but this particular spiritual community had a different understanding about the life of the one we know as Jesus. This particular Muslim community understood that his life, his teaching continued after the experience of crucifixion. Also expressed an understanding that he married, had children, and taught women even. He had many disciples that aren't mentioned in the Bibles, but most importantly, the Mary Magdalene of the Bible, who is misrepresented, was actually his wife. So this was a different spiritual community. And I met my husband, also part of this community, and we began a spiritual journey. But then he was diagnosed with cancer after nearly 20 years of marriage. And I knew I had a religious faith and a belief, which I believed in, raised our daughter in. But I knew I wanted some verification. So we had an agreement. And I'm going to share with you a bit about that agreement, which led to one of our books that we'll talk about, in which I share what I learned after his transition. And this is on my website, naimalatif.com. This story that I share so that those who are wondering what happens may know. So take a look at a portion of this story. Hi, I'm Naimah. Are you grieving over the loss of a loved one? What actually happens when you die? What would happen if a departed loved one came back to you and told you exactly what they were experiencing? Well, that's what happened to me. So I want to share my experience with you so that you know for certain that your loved ones are still right here and they can talk to you if you're ready to listen. I can show you how. It's right here in this book, Visits from the Dream State. In May of 2006, my husband, Sultan Abdul Latif, was diagnosed with colon cancer. The doctors gave him about 1 year to live. But we were living a healthy lifestyle. We believed in healthy eating. And we said, oh, we can beat this. They had advised chemotherapy, but we said, no, we're going to try some healthy herbal treatments that we've read about. And sure enough, a year later, Sultan was still here. But he was still rapidly losing weight. And even with our healthy eating and healthy lifestyle and herbal treatments, we could see that the illness was progressing. By July of 2007, he had lost quite a bit of weight, and so we decided to go ahead and try the chemotherapy. But even after months of chemotherapy, we could see that his transition was imminent. Now, we, of course, were devout Muslims, and we believed in an afterlife. But there's one thing to have a faith. There's another thing to have certain knowledge based on experience. My husband, Sultan, was about to go into the great unknown, where we all go eventually. But I wanted more than just a faith. I wanted a no. So I made him promise that when he ultimately transitioned, that he figure out a way to come back and tell me exactly how it is. Well, I want you to know, he kept his promise. A few days after his funeral, he began visiting me in spirit. I kept a notebook by my bed and recorded every time he visited me. My husband, Sultan, and I, we were partners in life. We produced TV shows together. We produced a stage play together. We wrote books together. And after a few months of recording his visits, I realized this was yet another book we were writing together. And that notebook evolved into this book, Visits from the Dream State. You know, our religions don't teach us that we can still contact a loved one after they have left their physical bodies. So we assume we can't do it, or we're not supposed to do it. You know, all over the internet, there are people who are describing near-death experiences where they've died and gone to heaven and met with loved ones. And then ultimately they decided it wasn't yet their time, so they came back to Earth. Well, I didn't have a near-death experience, but I did, with the help of my husband, Sultan, leave my body and enter the spirit realm, where he now resides. And we could get together and talk. It sounds amazing, doesn't it? You know, when we were first standing there together in spirit, at first I was like, are we supposed to be doing this? I mean, are we breaking any rules? But apparently, it's okay. There are no rules. Now, many people may be afraid because of whatever they've been taught. But the reality is, we can contact our loved ones who are in spirit because we too are spirits. Now, it's been 17 years since my husband's transition, and we have kept in touch. I have visited him in spirit. I have seen what looks like a college campus, and I have been inside a classroom where apparently he's enjoying taking classes. We've talked, we've discussed friends and family members. We've talked about my personal life. We have been able to keep a relationship, even though my work here is not yet done. And he's having an amazing adventure where he now resides. Now that I know what I know, and I've seen what I've seen, I want to share it with you so that you too can discover what I discovered. When I was seeking information, it was like being a scientist, exploring, experimenting, and ultimately discovering the formula for how to reconnect with the essence of my husband. Now that I know what I know, I have absolutely no fear of death, nor do I ever grieve. I am at absolute perfect peace. And you can be at perfect peace as well. Get the book, Visits from the Dream State. Go to www.naimalatif.com. That's www.naimalatif.com. It's on sale now. Just $10 plus shipping and handling. And if you order by Monday, December 16th, you'll receive the holiday special of one free book with your order. Give it to a friend who's grieving, so they too can be in perfect peace. And that's my story. That is the beginning of the journey toward understanding. After my husband's visits began, which I talk about in the book, I began to be made aware of other internet communicators who were sharing stories. And I became aware of people who were revolutionary and groundbreaking. And I began to have more experiences. So we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, I'll tell you about my extraterrestrial experience, which of course I talk about in the book. And I'll tell you about some past life memories, which helps to define my present day activities and purpose. So we'll be right back after this quick break. We just want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. I'm coming out of the spiritual closet today to tell what I know so that we can grow. We'll be right back. So just stay with us.
Great day. It's your girl Asada here to introduce a new female solution show called Asada Says. That's right. Every month we're going to talk about everything I am, from cryptocurrency and financial security to good health and parenting strategies. Come on and talk with me every Tuesday morning from 7 a.m. to 8 a.m. And let's do that thing the way Asada says it should be done. See you then. Peace, right here on the Female Solution.
Yes, and if you missed yesterday's Female Solution, go back and watch it because it was a good one. And we really had a chance to talk about this whole issue that has scarred us. And it's time for us to understand what love is. She said, love don't hurt. Well, love is the energy of creation, and love is the vibration that we are all striving to ascend to. Well, during the time I was with my husband, we were married, and of course, before his transition, we always in the morning would share our spiritual experiences during the night. Some dreams, some were seriously out of body journeys. And there was a particular out of body journey that I share in this book, Visits from the Dream State. And what happened during the night, I transitioned to another dimension. I won't call it a dream because it was very lucid, very real, I was very conscious, and I described this experience. I met someone in that state that was obviously from a different world. It's a different world. Well, it was really different because this man, he had male energy, but his physical appearance was insectozoid. Now, I describe it in this book. And we were meeting in a different dimension, and we were communicating. But I realized we were communicating telepathically because I don't remember his lips moving, but he looked insectozoid. He was like my height and weight, but he had that oval shaped face. He looked like a praying mantis, kind of like a grasshopper type insect, had the oval shaped eyes, and I don't remember if he had antenna, but I remember his arms looked like the little insect kind of arms. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Fly. That's, old. Anyway, but oh my gosh, he was horrific looking. But now, have you ever met a person and they're really, really, really unattractive? They might even maybe have had an accident, facial disfigure, something that they're repulsive to look at. But you don't want to hurt their feelings because they've probably been teased, probably traumatized by people making fun of them and everything. So you are conscious of how you fix your face, not to reflect your inner revulsion. Well, that was the state of mind that I was in. I'm talking to this guy, and we were communicating telepathically. I'm talking to him, and in my mind, I'm thinking, "Oh, you show me it's ugly." I mean, I'm thinking, I'm like, okay, this is the ugliest creature I've ever seen, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. So, plus, where he's from, people probably don't look like me. He's probably thinking the same thing about me. And he has such a pleasant, peaceful, friendly spirit. He was a nice person, but he looked horrific by human standards. So I was conscious that I fixed my face, my friendly smile as he's talking, telepathically to me. I'm, smiling, nodding like, oh, interesting. Now, what he's saying is we're talking about, the state of affairs on Earth because, distressed about how bad things are in our world. And he said, well, we used to have the same problems you do, crime, violence, poverty. We had all that. But now everyone lives in peace. So I said to him, telepathically, how did you fix the problem? How did you fix your problems? And he said to me, we followed our prophet. Now, of course, when he said that, I remember a verse in the Holy Quran, the scripture of the Muslims, of course, I'm in the Muslim tradition. I remember a scripture that says every people has received a prophet. Everybody has received someone who is spiritually evolved that gives them information on how to behave so that they can correct whatever level of barbarism they might be experiencing. And if they just follow these teachings, and we had Buddha, we had Jesus, and the whole Holy Quran was step-by-step instructions on how to live in a civilized society. So we've had instructions. We've had people who demonstrated what it looked like. But in this world, everybody who comes to us, we always persecute them. In our barbarism, we don't listen. Only a few, and those few who listen, we see their evolution. But the masses of people don't listen. So that's what's wrong with Earth. We're not following our instruction. We always had spiritually higher evolved people that lived among us that gave us teachings. And like this, my new friend just said, if we just follow it, we would have peace. Well, that made so much sense to me. So anyway, I left that dimension, came back to my physical body, and I'm in bed with my husband because this was in the morning and after our nightly adventures of the dream state. And I've shared with him what happened. Well, he too had met beings who were different looking. And he said he had an encounter one time. He shared with me his extraterrestrial encounter at one point in his life. And he said the person that he met looked kind of reptilian with a like dark red tongue and scaly skin and all of that. And then the man told him, well, we're religious on our world also. And my husband asked him, what do you call your religion? And he said, we call it Islam. And of course, Islam just means peace, which, and on this planet saying it means peace. Peace. How do you have peace? Well, you must love. So my husband and I, we would share our extraterrestrial experiences, our otherworldly experiences, our past life memory experiences, because we both were on that high spiritual vibe that transcended a religious doctrine. And that's why we were so well matched, because we were here to do a spiritual work. So that encounter is discussed in my book, Visits from the Dream State. My daughter said, are you sure you want to tell people about that? Because people who have not had experiences like that, again, questioning your sanity, questioning, what kind of spirit you're talking to, all of those things. But when it's your mission, you must share so that others who don't know can know. We've got some comments here, and feel free to share your comments. And we certainly want to get your responses. And our sister Zelda from Higher Learning Network says, this is the best closet to ever come out of. It sets you free like nothing else ever. Thanks for sharing such truths. Yes. Well, we must share our truths. Now, during the last few years of my husband's life on Earth in a body, because of course he still exists and I still visit him from time to time. But he wrote the foreword to my book, which evolved into this show, The Female Solution. We're going to take one last break, and when we come back, I want to share with you the past life experiences that affected this book and my mission to gather women together especially for the healing of the planet. We'll be right back after this last break. We want you to stick and stay. Don't stray away. I'm going to tell you all about my memory of another life. We'll be right back. So stay with us. And we are back. You are watching Voices of Enlightenment on the Female Solution. We'll be back tonight for the on-air daily news hour. We share news that you can use to better your condition as we report on the on-air daily news, which you can go to onair.dailynews.com. Well, right now, we want to share with you the backstory of the book, The Female Solution. And it was published in 2007, the beginning of 2007. My husband transitioned at the end of 2007, but he wrote the foreword to this book. And during the time I was writing this book, I was also writing a series, a children's book series, featuring animal characters, and I was enjoying, writing this book because I love to watch animal shows on the PBS channel, and I would see shows about the various animal families and cultures and everything. So I was writing this book as a children's book with stories of children's experiences in these various, birds, bears, deer, all kinds of animals from a children's point of view, from a child who had lived in that society's point of view. And I was really enjoying that. And I had a series of stories, and my husband was reading those stories. And at the same time, I was also writing a book about women and relationships, because I was so distressed at what I was seeing in the schools. I was teaching it in schools at the time, and I was seeing so many children coming from broken homes. And I felt like if women would just make better choices, can't they see that the men that they're getting involved with don't have preparation for fatherhood, and how it's devastating our youth? And of course, I don't have to elaborate on that. We all know, we see what state of affairs our children are in. Well, my husband says, well, you should add your animal stories to the book. I thought, oh, that's a good idea. Well, somewhere during that time period, I had another experience. And it's in the book, The Female Solution. Every chapter has a story about an animal, one about birds and how the bird female, makes her nest or watches the male make the nest. So she decides which male is best to select as her mate. And, how every female has some kind of way that they evaluate whether a male is fit. But human females don't seem to have that. So the book took on that character of giving women a guideline on selecting proper mates. Well, I had an experience one night, which was a past life memory. And this past life memory was when I was a child in a buffalo herd. And I remember that experience. And I'll tell you the story. I remember it wasn't a dream. It was a memory. I remember looking down at my little legs. I couldn't have been more than maybe a week old, little skinny legs with split hooves. And I'm in the field with my mother. And I know that my mother had always told me, stay close to the herd, stay close to the herd. And I must tell you this, there is a universal language of telepathy. Everybody speaks it. Animals speak it, everybody. Human beings are the only one who lose that experience. They lose that ability, especially when we start verbal speaking. We say things like, oh, we're the only ones who have speech. No, we're the only ones who don't speak, because every being is connected telepathically, but we have lost our abilities, because that's the universal language. But my mother had always told me to stay close to the herd, for safety, don't wander off. Well, what happened was I, got distracted by a butterfly, and smell of the grass and everything smelled so sweet, and everything, watching this butterfly flit around. And then I felt somebody watching me. You know that feeling. And I looked in the bushes over across the field, and a pair of leopard eyes are watching me. And I'm thinking, that was a feeling that I had. Didn't say the words because, that wasn't my vocabulary, but that was the feeling, because I knew that I had been singled out, because I had wandered away, separated myself. I was young, easy prey. And I also knew, my mother told me, if ever you're chased, you got to run in an unpredictable zigzag pattern. So, all these thoughts coming to me like in an instant. So I spring up, take off running. I'm trying to calculate, how the distance between the leopard and me and the herd. And I'm running, and I'm zigzagging, zigzag, zag. And I'm running. I'm thinking, I can't make it. I'm running. And suddenly, all the cows, all the mothers in the herd surrounded me. My heart is beating. I'm thinking, oh, I need a drink. And my mother, she knew I needed to nurse. So I'm grabbing my mother's udders. I'm, nursing, and all the milk just calming me down. And all the mothers were surrounding me while I'm nursing. And my father, this big bull, he bounds out and charges the leopard. And the leopard, and I can see the battle going on. I'm looking at this wall of cow legs, because all the cows that surrounded me, all the mothers and the herd has surrounded me. I'm nursing my mother. I'm watching this battle going on. And my father, big, strong bull, he's fighting this leopard, and this leopard, I see the leopard's fangs on him, and then my father's big horn is turned around and jabs the leopard. And then the leopard, I hear it scream, and then he runs off, slinks off back into the bushes. My father, man, he was big, massive bull, and he was looking around like anybody else out there. I run this up in here. You don't mess with my family. That was his vibe. He was powerful. And I was the emotions that I felt. First of all, admiration for him for being so strong. He could protect me. And then I felt guilt, because I saw that the leopard had wounded him, and he had this, gash on his shoulder with bleeding, and I knew it was my fault. And I realized he's got to protect every child in this herd like this. So I can't put his life in jeopardy. I can't wander off. In that instant, I understood everything. I understood in a family, in a collective unit, everybody has a role. My role as a child is to stay close to my mother and close to the herd, so that my father doesn't have to risk his life for me. That's my role until I get grown. That's what I'm supposed to do. Mothers, they knew to protect the children. Collectively, that's what we do. Everybody knows what they're supposed to do. The father, and he's the one that all the mothers, of course, they were part of who he was protecting as a family, because he was the strong bull that had the heart to protect his family. So the one who's the head of the herd, the one who has the right to be in that position, is the one who has the heart to protect the lives and the strength and the power. And I understood that's the criteria for fatherhood. I understood all of that instantly. That was the experience that I had. So, of course, when I awakened, again, came back to this dimension of time, and my husband and I were sharing that story. And that story is in the book, The Female Solution. It's under the title, I think the 7th chapter, Harmony in the Buffalo Herd. Well, part of what I began to discover after my husband's transition were many wisdom teachers that helped me understand things. And one of those wisdom teachers was a woman who was a past life regression therapist, Dolores Cannon. And she would take people back to previous lives. And she explained that all of us are part of creation. We've all been everything. We've been all different races. We've lived on all continents. We've been both genders. We've been all of that. And we've been everything. We've been air. We've been water. We've been fish. We've been birds. We've been all of those things because it's an experience. Earth is an experience. And you learn something through each experience. And when she would regress her clients back to other lives, some of them on other planets, some other cultures, some they might have been another gender, another race, they would always go back to the life that was most significant. Now, when you have a life, every life experience, it's the emotions that get stored in your soul. It's emotions that teach you something, and you remember those emotions. I remembered the emotions of that life when I was a male child in the buffalo herd. But the emotions that I felt, one of the greatest emotions that I understood was the importance of collective mothering, how I felt safe in that community. I felt safe because the mothers all protected me while my father did battle for me, and we were a community. One of the reasons why that particular memory I was allowed to have, and it shaped a lot of what I say about in The Female Solution. The book advocates that we collectively mother our children, and we select only those men who have the strength, the heart, the ability and the willingness to protect us, to love our children. And in situations that we have been in because of various wars where a lot of the male population has been killed off, we may have to share. But it's important that every child be mothered and be in a family, a protective family. Now, when I first put the book, The Female Solution, out, and my husband and I, we talked about the marketing strategy. Now, just that one chapter talks about, the sharing of the spouses and everything. He said, well, that's a good marketing strategy because that is controversial. So I talk about polygamy as a means when we have situations where there are not enough men. And the book blew up, people were debating it, talking about it. Women were intensely upset about it. Anytime I want no woman having sex with my man. And so there was the controversy, of course, it definitely caused the book to grow. Now, the polygamy itself is not the main issue, but that's the issue that we chose for marketing purposes to highlight. And that particular life experience helped me to understand what it feels like being a child in a community where you are protected by all the mothers. So, of course, most men didn't understand it either. Most of them, still players and trying to figure out how they can have a bunch of women and lie to all of them and not take care of any of the children. So as a species, we are not, in my observation, based on my experience, we are not as evolved as a herd of buffalo because we don't understand the collective. we don't, as human beings, we don't see ourselves as a collective body. Now, we might fight and be against other nations, but when it comes to our family culture, we do not operate as a collective in the raising of our children, which is why our children are unprotected and abused. So, one of the things that I have come to understand why I was allowed to remember that particular life, so that I could understand how it feels to be a child in a community where the mothers work as a collective in protecting the children, but also so that I could understand why human females can't understand it, why they couldn't, even though in the Holy Quran, it is advocated after a big war happened, it was advocated that men take on, take care of the orphans, the children, and marry other women so that they could help them in taking care of the children. So they form those kinds of cooperative families. We see that's been made a mess of. Men have been abusive to women and pitted women against each other and all of that, which is the exact opposite of the spirit of things. It's supposed to be so that our children, even after we've made a mess of war and killed all the men, we can still have families. Well, I am realizing that women can't understand that because they don't see themselves as a collective. The competition, like being pitted against each other. So we can't fix the problem that we humans have created with killing each other in war by combining our families and collectively raising our children. So we can't fix the problem. So I understood that. And the feelings that I remembered from that life helped me understand why we still don't have the love in our hearts to work together to collectively love our children so that no child is without a home, a mother, and a father, because children need the protection of a father. And I experienced that in that life. So that gives you a bit of backstory about the female solution. So our philosophy, as an amazing group of women who are visionary and are motivated by their own individual purpose and mission, we are each sharing our experiences and bringing on guests that highlight knowledge that can help us heal our planet. That's what we must do. But today I wanted to give you a snippet of why we're doing what we're doing as the female solution, trying to help women know that we are the solution, but we must work as a collective body in the loving and protecting and raising our children, raising them with love, raising them with a secure sense that they will always be protected, raising them in harmony with the men in our lives so they can see what love in a family looks like. And Zelda says to us, our classes we start teaching today at Betty Shabazz International Charter School are very fortunate to have you as the leader of this new venture so our children can share their griot experience. Ashe, yes, we are going to help children express themselves in the musical form. And if you watch yesterday's show again, we talked about griots, how we learn our history through those who recite to the beat of music. And our children have that same talent and skills. And she says, just came out the spiritual closet and never going backwards. Ashe, yes, I've come out of the spiritual closet and let you know that I remember. And on our page, you go to onaireverywhere.com. We have the On Air Internet Radio TV Guide. And these are shows that I recommend that you subscribe to. Wisdom teachers, those who have come out of the spiritual closet and are sharing knowledge. And lastly, before we go, this book, Slavery, the African American Psychic Trauma. This book, which reminds us that we, the people who were transported from Africa, that was an experience. That's not our identity, ex-slaves. We've been on this planet for eons. We've created civilizations, and we have interacted with those who have come from other worlds to work with us. And we can even see the remnants of that recorded on the walls of our pyramids and ancient land relics. And we have a memory. We talk about in this book a genetic memory, because not only is the past stored in our emotions, the past is stored in the cells of our bodies from the family line that we choose to incarnate through. And now I've had other past life memories. I've had a memory when I was a white male, part of the security guard forces in the land, probably over Sweden somewhere or whatever. I was Nordic people. I'm not going to tell that story today, but one day I'm going to tell that story, because we incarnate with the same people over and over again to work out differences, and we play different roles. And this is something that Dolores Cannon, of course, her daughter, Julia Cannon, is one of the people I'll be looking to have as a guest to talk about this whole process of being eternal beings, having experiences so that we can learn how to love. And we choose our life circumstances, and we choose challenges to overcome. And in this particular life, we'll leave over time. So I'm gonna just tell a story anyway. Last story, people. Because I want us to understand that we are here for a purpose, but it's an eternal purpose of learning. This is who we are. We are the life force energy having an experience. And we are having this experience on Earth, which is a planet of free will, but also a planet of amnesia. We're having this life experience so that we can find our way back to the ultimate energy from which we all came, which is love. So I'm going to tell this last story, a past life memory. Now, I have a friend in this particular life, and we've gone through some various things together, and had an experience with this friend that was very, very, very hurtful. I was very angry and hurt, and it grieved me for years. I was very sad, very hurting. One day I woke up actually crying about it. I was just so devastated. And I forgave this friend, but I was grieving that what they did was an act of betrayal, and it was an act of humiliation and hurt, and I was angry and sad. And I'd been in a depression about it for a long time. And then a past life memory was downloaded to me. And I remembered being a friend of this same person in another life. And in that life, we were both white males. We are not white males in this life. But in that life, we were both white males, and we were very close. We were like brothers. And I remember what they looked like. They had blonde hair, kind of like shoulder length. I had shorter black hair. And this friend was kind of more stocky built, a little heavier than me. And I was like fit, I had, the six-pack abs and muscles, and everything. But we were both part of the guard in this community. Now, the way the guard worked, all the men who were part of the guard in the community, this was, again, some Nordic community, up in Sweden or whatever, way over there in that land. And this was like back in the Middle Ages. And I remember the armor that we see. I remember walking with our clanking armor and, walking in there with a macho walk, how men walking, like football player kind of, build and muscles and the armors we wore, the clanking. I remember that. And we had our sword and shield. Well, the way it worked, the community was surrounded by bushes, kind of like I guess, it noted the boundaries of our community. And the guards, we took turns in shifts. We each, we had to take a shift to guard the community from invaders. Would try to come and get through, the little openings. And I remember the spot that we were assigned to guard, and the guard duty, it was from dusk, in the evening, to dawn, sunrise the next day. That was our shift. And the two of us, well, me and my partner, we were the baddest team in the guard. I mean, and every night, we report, to our spot, stand guard, and so when invaders came, it might be 10 of them, but we were bad. We would stand back to back, and we'd be, we had our sword, our shield, we'd be taking them out, chasing them off. And then, because we were literally saving each other's lives every night. So this was a powerful bond. We were closer than brothers. I loved my brother. He was like my brother. And so now, at the end of our shift, we would go to the local pub, and I remember holding the tin mug with the beer in it, and we'd sit at our table with the other guard members, and it was like, when we walked in, it was like the way we would get greeted. It was like, you remember like the football team after they won the game the day before, and they come into the cafeteria and everybody like, who, there they are, so that kind of hero feeling when you come in. So we come into the pub, and we getting our beer and sitting around with the other guard. It was like a brotherhood, and we singing our little raunchy songs and stuff. And my partner in the guard, he always had these, lively, colorful stories. He'd be, talking about how he saved my life. He always had these lively, colorful stories. So, and I smashed him with my shield, and I pressed him with my sword, and he just, and he'd get him and I get out and everything. Everybody, oh, really, so I mean, it was so much fun. I remember the feeling of camaraderie. I remember how it felt. And I mean, but I we were always saving each other's life every night. But it was like every night a battle, the life battle, But and then when in the daytime in the pub, we getting together, we're laughing and talking, and everybody sharing their little stories of how they fought off the enemy and everything. It was such a brotherhood, such a love and camaraderie among us. Well, there was this woman there. She had blonde hair, and I think she worked at the pub, barmaid or whatever they'd call them back that day. Well, I had fallen in love with her, and I wanted to marry her. And now, if you all just tuned in, please go back to the beginning, because you see this thing saying, coming out of the spiritual closet. I'm telling the story, just if you just tuned in, I'm telling a story about a past life memory when I was a male. I was a white male in the Middle Ages. That's the story I'm telling. That I'm sharing my memory. So if you just tuned in, you see this banner, and then I'm talking about I'm in love with a woman. I don't want you to take it out of context. I am still heterosexual. I'm not coming out of that closet. I'm coming out of the spiritual closet. Just so you know, telling this story about my memory. So I remember telling my dear friend, my partner in the guard, how much I love this woman and I wanted to marry her. And, just, so I said, oh, really? So now I'm in love with this woman, right? And, and it's my partner. So now it was getting ready to be time for our shift. And, and he says to me, I slept with her, and kind of thrown in my face. And man, I was devastated. You knew I loved her and you slept with her? And he, was like laughing at it like, yeah, I had her first. I was so angry. I was so hurt. Now we're supposed to report for our guard duty at dusk. Well, I didn't show up. I didn't come. I was so angry at him. I was so angry. I didn't come. And it's getting later and later at night, and I'm still stewing about it. He knew I loved her. I'd be stabbing me in the back like that. How could he do this to me? How could he do this to me? I thought he was my brother. I thought he cared about me. And I was so angry, jealous, I don't know. And I don't know why he did that. I was so hurt at the betrayal. So I didn't come. Well, it was getting to be nearly midnight. So finally I'm thinking, let me just go on and go. So I get to our spot at the little opening in the bushes surrounding the trees, surrounding the community, for our spot where we stand guard. I get there and he's lying on the ground, bleeding to death, mortal wounds. I mean, ain't no 911 back then, right? Because he's dying, breathing his last breath. And I was like, oh my God. I'm just crying. I remember the tears. I remember the anguish. They had ambushed him. Of course, he didn't have me there to have his back. And they overpowered him. He's lying there dying. And I remember crying over his dying body and just crying and crying. I was so sorrowful, but I was angry at myself for not having the ability to forgive. I was angry that I didn't have enough love in me to forgive him, even though he had betrayed me, even though he had hurt me, even though he made me feel bad. He was still my brother. And I should have been able to forgive. I remember that feeling, the crying. I remember as he's dying, I remember that. So now, as many people who talk about near-death experiences share, in many of these websites that I recommend that you watch if you've not seen near-death experience. A near-death experience is when you die and then you usually have a life review and you see what you did wrong. Well, also, as in one of the things that Dolores Cannon does in her past life regression, she's wrote a book even called Between Death and Life. We're explaining how we plan each life. We plan where we're going to live, what gender we're going to be. We plan as a human being, this whole human drama. We plan how we're going to experience life so we can learn lessons. And sometime after I passed away in that life, I wanted to have an experience with this friend again, this soul who's my friend, and have them betray me again, do something hurtful again, to give me an opportunity to forgive them. So that was the plan. And all of us who are here, we have planned the life we have. We have planned the experiences, and the different people in our lives are part of our karmic history with these people. Many lives we've had together. Sometimes and so the challenges that we have, we plan them because we're trying to learn something and we're trying to grow spiritually. So I remembered my plan for this life with this friend who's going to be my friend in this life and hurt me badly, to give me a chance to forgive them. Well, of course, as you see, we're not white males in this life, but we are friends in this life. And this is a friend that caused me tremendous pain, and I had to forgive. So once that memory was downloaded to me, then I understood. And all the depression and the sadness went away because I understood that I wanted to have this experience to give me a chance to forgive, to help me evolve spiritually. So having these past life memories, not only of being another race and another gender, but also of another species even, I see life differently. I have respect for all life forms because we've been all things. I have respect for all people. I can't be mad at white men. I used to be one. So I don't see myself identity-wise as I'm a Black woman. That's who I am in this life for the purpose that I have. And part of my purpose was to get together with my husband and write the books that we wrote, to give the knowledge that we're giving. Our mission is to help to heal the African Americans who went through the enslavement experience, help to heal the trauma. That was our life plan. So I'm aware of that. So I'm sharing this with you to broaden your perspective. And I don't argue with people whose religion won't let them know about reincarnation. I don't argue because not everybody chose to awaken in this lifetime. Some people, they still have to work out other karmic issues, other conflicts. The people who are at war, they got a long karmic history of war. Until they choose to stop being angry at each other and wanting to kill each other, they're going to keep experiencing that. That's their choice. You have to choose to evolve, just like I chose to evolve to a point of forgiveness. All of us are making choices as to where we're going to be as the earth evolves. We have to choose to live in love, or we can choose to be in conflict, and we'll keep experiencing conflict. Those of us who are choosing love, we're going to be experiencing a different reality. Even though we're on the same earth, we're going to experience a different reality because we're going to attract to us people who are on that same vibration. And we'll live cooperatively. We'll create new systems of exchange that are not exploited. That's why some people are getting the incentive, the inspiration to even start and be participating in new systems of exchange, because the old ones are exploitive and hurtful and causing poverty and violence. Like my friend from the other world said, they solved their problems. They just followed the teachings of the higher spiritual being that taught them. And we've had them on this planet. So my perspective on existence is different because of my experience and my memory of those past lives and my realization that my life in this time was on purpose. And even my husband who transitioned before me, even that was part of the plan, because him coming back to open a door of remembrance to me is what put me on this present day path. People like Dolores Cannon. And when she was doing her work 40 years ago, regressing people to past lives, nobody knew about past lives. Everybody thought you live life and you die. And in a hypnotism session with a client, she was just doing the regular, her and her husband were doing regular hypnotism on clients on an army base. That's where her husband was stationed, and he was a hypnotist, and he would help people doing things like, try to lose weight, under hypnosis. But then they hypnotized this one woman, and she started going back into these different past lives. And that's what started her on her journey. So now we are aware that we are eternal beings having many, many life experiences on many different planets. You stay on the earth experience until you have mastered love. That's why you're here. Until you can master love, you keep coming here, and you might change different situations. You might change your gender, change your race, change your land of birth, change your family structure. You give yourself different scenarios to help yourself evolve so that you can master that quality of love. That's why we're here. That's what Jesus taught. And he even explained it. And we will also, in a future show, we're looking to have the one who channeled the book that is entitled Jesus, My Autobiography, in which he tells his actual story, which is not the story told in the Bible. The Bible is very political. Now, it's not to say his teachings are wrong. His actual teachings, of course, are revolutionary and evolutionary and intended to be. But things that the church does suppresses so much of his life-giving knowledge that people have been able to use the Bible as a weapon against people. But no matter what your spiritual path is, there are many souls who come here for the purpose of being that higher evolved teacher, as my friend, that insectozoid guy, as my friend said. So it doesn't matter what spiritual path you're in. You might be a Buddhist, you might be Catholic, you might be a Hindu, you might be a Muslim, you might be a Scientologist, you might be any of those many different spiritual paths. If you follow the line that says, what is that foundation? Love your neighbor as yourself. However, your spiritual guide, your spiritual teacher, the head of your spiritual community, however they are teaching the foundation of what we are evolving into and what we are striving to master, that power of love. If you vibe with a certain spiritual leader and that's what's helping you evolve, then that's the right spiritual path for you. That's how you're going to become your next higher expression. So I don't have a need to try to convert anybody to anything. Wherever you are, that's where you're supposed to be. That's what you chose as your path to help you in your enlightenment. It's the right path for you, whatever it is. Whatever it is, choose the parts that others haven't distorted away from the basic teachings of love, because that will give you where you need to go. All of us are being guided with whatever spiritual path we choose, but our hearts have to be attuned to love so that we can get the correct teachings that are coming through those spiritual leaders. So you may be in a traditional religion, traditional Christianity, traditional Islamic religion. You might be a traditional Buddhist. You might be traditional. You might be something that's different. You might be a Seventh-day Adventist. You might be, like I said, Scientologist. You might be a Jehovah's Witness. You might be any of those things. And it's correct for you. If your heart is right, you will find the portion in those teachings that are going to lead you back to love, because that's why you're here. So every path will lead you back to the creative energies of the universe we call God, which is love. If you, in your heart, have that desire. But that's why we're all here, to learn how to master love. So I will be bringing you those communicators who are using this very powerful tool of the internet to share what they know, their experiences, the experiences of their guests, people who will take you beyond your limited beliefs and understandings so that you can do what you came to do, and that is evolve to the higher consciousness, the highest vibration of love. That's why we are here. And that's why today I have come out of the spiritual closet to share my experience, in the hopes that those of you who may have had experiences will speak up, because we need to add to those people who are aware. We need to increase the numbers of the aware And that's what will help the planet to shift as we reach that point of collective enlightenment. Thank you for joining us today. And we want you to like and subscribe to the channels that you're watching on the Female Solution every day, because all of our hosts are here with their own unique mission to teach, inspire, motivate, and share that which will help you become part of the greater collective, part of the family of Earth, part of the energy of love. I'm Naimah Latif. Join us tonight for the on-air daily news hour, and then come on back tomorrow for Master Force with Mushem Sut at 7 a.m. and again at 7 p.m. with Nonprofits Empowering Worlds with Bridget. Join us every day for the Female Solution. And until next time, may you continue to shine your light.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, Ngiyabonga. Senegal, Jaref. Kenya, Asante. Israel, Toda. Pakistan, Shukriya. Afghanistan, Tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, Shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.